Amen. So this morning's the message is about remembering your Creator or our Creator. Actually, memory is a big deal. You know, if we can't remember things very well, we can't do things very well. Like the other day, I was in my seminary class. It's a class on pastors and leadership, right? Pastoring and leadership. So this very prominent pastor, he's the instructor for the class, 73 years of age. He has planted churches in Asia, in North America, so much work and experience for the kingdom of God. So who better to share that experience about pastoring and leadership for that class? So all the students are very attentive listening to him. And all of a sudden, like toward the end of the lecture, he's like, guys, I remember something very important I gotta tell you. So he went on to tell us the story about this church he was planting, something very exciting and very interesting, hardship that he was going through. And he's talking and talking about the story, and then he said, hey, I forgot the point I was trying to make. I was so involved in the story, I forgot the point that I'm trying to tell you with the story. And he apologized. He felt really embarrassed. He said, you know, guys, at my age, I often forget things. I'll be remembering something in my study, second floor in my home, right? And I went downstairs to try to get that something I'm trying to remember. And then as soon as I get downstairs, I look around and wonder, why did I come downstairs for? And he asked, do you guys have any of those experiences? You know, because you guys are still young. You guys are very fortunate. But actually, the students in my class were all kind of quietly admitting that, yes, we all have those experiences. You guys have any of those experiences before? You go somewhere to get something, and then you got to that place, and you're wondering, what am I doing here for? So actually, you know, memory loss is not just for people with advanced age. I've noticed that. In fact, when I remember back to my very young years, like some of you guys sitting over here, I remember sometimes I will forget stuff that are extremely important. But there's a reason for that. There's always a reason for forgetting things. Like I remember there was this one field trip I went on to. It's the first time that I went to the Los Angeles Zoo. It was very exciting because I was only 7th grade, right? And that trip was very special because we're in an experimental class, life science class. Very large, many instructors, not just one teacher, 60 plus students. So they decided to take us to the LA Zoo for a field trip, a very experimental learning experience. So we were all excited because first we were 7th graders. 7th graders are just excited no matter what, all right? Secondly, they were going to break us into small groups with no adult supervision. Thinking back, that's very dangerous. That's very risky of when doing that. But that's what they decided. Small groups, about 10 students, right? 6 groups, right? And we each had this assignment sheet. We were supposed to go around to all corners of the zoo and answer all the questions of the assignment sheet during an entire day of field trip. So we were all excited because no adult supervision. We're hanging out with friends, and we got to go around in the zoo, and I'd never been to the LA Zoo before, so it was a very exciting day. But the teacher warned us, you know, you guys, when you get there, you're going to be very excited. There are lots of interesting animals, but don't forget to do the assignment because it's a big part of your grade. Don't forget. Kept on saying, don't forget. We're not going to forget one. But as soon as we arrived at the parking lot, we were just going crazy, running off the bus and going in, and teacher got us together, divided up the groups, and we were off. So I remember the feeling. It was one of the awesomest days in my middle school years, right? So we were walking around with friends, we were singing and joking. That's another funny thing about guys in middle school. We joke about everything. We see an elephant, and we're just cracking up looking at the elephant. I don't know why. And giraffe, it's like, we seen giraffes, well, on TV before, but we were just joking about everything and having a blast, and we were eating lunch in the picnicking area. It was just the funnest day ever in my middle school years, right? And then it was time to go back, so we have to reassemble. Got back to the bus, teacher counted everybody, and we're just, what an awesome day. But it's over now, but it was cool until someone say, hey, did you answer any questions? Can you let me look at your answers to the questions, to the worksheet? What worksheet? Oh, and then we realized we messed up big time. The whole time we were playing around in the LA Zoo, we forgot to answer any question, not a single question. We didn't answer a single question on that paper, and it was supposed to be a big part of our semester grade. But now we're getting on the bus going back, and it was too late to do the assignments. Nobody remembered to answer any questions. So I guess that was a failed experiment for that class. That's not the way to go. But you know, King Solomon, he wrote this book, Ecclesiastes, towards the end of his life. The end of his life, when there are no more time left. And he wants to tell the world and the future generations about what we must remember to do, what we must not do. From his entire life of experience and wisdom, he wants to tell the future generations. And towards the end of his life, he tells the people, don't forget one thing in your life. Remember your Creator. This is what he wrote in Ecclesiastes. Oh, did I put chapter 9? I think it should be chapter 12. I'm sorry. It should be chapter 12, not chapter 9, right? Chapter 12. Okay, apologies on the mistake. But this is what he wrote. He wrote, remember your Creator in the days of your youth, before the days of trouble come, and the years approach when you will say, I find no pleasure in them. Before the sun and the light and the moon and the stars grow dark, and the clouds return after the rain, when the keepers of the house tremble, and the strong men stoop. When the grinders cease because they are few, and those looking through the windows grow dim. When the doors to the streets are closed, and the sound of grinding fades. When people rise up at the sound of birds, but all their songs grow faint. When people are afraid of heights and of dangers in the streets, when the almond tree blossoms and the grasshopper drags itself along, and desire no longer is stirred. So looking at what King Solomon is talking about, there's a lot of things that are very descriptive. Okay, some of them we can kind of understand. Some of them we need to explain the historical background of what he meant by these things. But just by looking at these things, it seems to be that Solomon is describing a lot of phenomenon that happens during old age. But you know, like my example with my professor, we don't remember things not just during old age. In fact, Solomon said many, many of these things as clues for us to take note and to remember, to not forget about our Creator. So why did Solomon forget during his younger years? Why did he forget to remember? Why does anyone forget to remember our Creator? Well, the first clue he said was, remember your Creator in the days of youth, before the days of trouble come and the years approach when you will say, I find no pleasure in them. In what? In the days, in every day of our lives, that we find no pleasure. You know, one can think that, wait a minute. Don't you guys know a lot of people who are elderlies, who still find lots of pleasures in their days? I know my mom is like that. Pastor Chen is like that. In fact, they're probably happier than me in their old age. So it's not just talking about old age here. What's Solomon talking about? You see, Solomon was referring to that during his younger years, he spent a lot of time and focus on seeking after pleasure. Seeking after pleasure. Because when you spend a lot of time seeking after pleasure, after some time, it becomes kind of mundane. And it's not other people's opinion of King Solomon. He himself wrote in Ecclesiastes chapter 2, verses 10 to 11. Next slide. No, the Ecclesiastes 2, verses 10 to 11 on my PowerPoint. The next one. Okay. So this is what he wrote about himself during his younger days. He said, I deny myself nothing my eyes desire. I refuse my heart no pleasure. My heart took delight in all my labor, and this was the reward for all my toil. I'm going to, okay, well, let's continue reading. Yet, when I survey all that my hands had done and what I had toiled to achieve, everything was meaningless, a chasing after the wind. Nothing was gained under the sun. So in his younger years, he said that he experienced all kinds of pleasure, seeked after every possible experiences. But after a while, he realized that they were nothing. They didn't mean anything. You know, I kind of have that experience also. Not like King Solomon, but I remember, I came to the States when I was very, very young. Very, very young. But, I came from Taiwan. And my memory of Taiwan is probably like anybody's memory of. When you think about going to visit Taiwan, what's the first thing that pops into your mind? Food. Right? Food. Anybody who's ever been there, you think about food. And that's what I remember at an even very young age. And not just any food. Where do you get the food? In the night markets. No, you don't. You can go to the fancy restaurant. They're very nice. But it's the night markets that we remember the most. Right? So I came out when I was very, very young. The first time I got a chance to go back and visit my hometown, it was 8 or 9 years later. I came out a little boy. I went back a college student. Everything was different. But what I wanted to do the most was to go to a night market and eat some of those food. I don't even remember what they taste like, but I just remember they're very, very delicious, right? If we go to the next slide, these are a couple of pictures of my hometown night markets. Could they be advanced? No? But they will pop up in a little bit. So anyways, I got to my hometown night markets, and I was standing at the entrance of the streets, right? And it was just like an explosion of senses. It's not just the smell of the food, but it's the senses, the sights. It's the lights and the people and the noise. There's nothing like that in North America. There's nothing like that. I was just like overwhelmed with this explosion of senses. I was like almost in tears. I get to taste. And I don't know what to order. I didn't know oh, there they are. Well, these are small pictures. They don't do them justice too much on the big screen. But anyways, that's just one corner of the night market. And you can see they try to pack everything possible in the little area there is. There's so much to do. So I went up to this stand, and I don't know what to order, so I just said, oh, I want that noodle stuff, right? So they gave me this bowl of noodle stuff, and I tasted it. I'm serious, not joking. It felt like it was the best food I ever tasted in my life. So I was very overwhelmed. So, of course, that's not enough. So I went to the next stand down the street, and that looked kind of interesting. So I ordered something over there. I didn't know what I was ordering. I tasted it, and it was like the best food I ever tasted. So I went from stand to stand the whole night just tasting different food. I'm serious, every single dish that I tasted was really, really awesome. So I had a blast that time. So thank goodness that the next year, I didn't know that I had an opportunity to go back the next summer, but I did. And I went back, and that was the first thing I wanted to do. I want to go to the night market. First chance I got, I went to different night markets, and I was overwhelmed with the senses once more. And I did the same thing. I ordered different food this time, different dishes, and they all tasted really awesome. So I was just like, wow, Taiwan is like the best place for food, right? The night markets are just awesome. Okay, so that was very memorable. Now, 2 years after that, I got a chance to go back for a long time, for 2 months in the summer. 2 months in the summer. So I went back, and of course, I wanted to go to the night market again. And I was very excited. I went to the night market, and I ordered the food just like before, just whatever I can order. And I tasted it. It was very good tasting, but the sensation was not like the previous times. I didn't feel like overwhelmed with this dish. It wasn't like before. So I'm like, oh, wait, these people are slacking off. They're not as good as before, right? So I went to another stand, and I ordered another dish. And guess what? It was the same feeling. It tasted good, but it wasn't overwhelmingly good. And then as I was tasting different food, I realized something. It wasn't the merchants that was slacking off. They didn't change. Everything was kind of the same. The person that changed was me. Because I've already done this. I've been there and I've done that so many times that it became old to me. And that's the thing about seeking after pleasure. It doesn't matter what awesome vacation destination that you've been to. If you go to that place multiple times, it's not just going to feel like the first time. If you've done anything, seek after any pleasure over and over again, you're going to find no pleasure in them. Perhaps King Solomon found no pleasure in his days anymore because he experienced so much pleasure, which meant he spent a lot of time seeking after pleasure. And when you do that, you're going to be like me back in the LA Zoo, having a good time with buddies, all the while forgetting I had a very important thing to complete until it's too late. That's what King Solomon was talking about. Found no more pleasure in life. And you don't have to be old to be able to experience that. The second thing that King Solomon was saying that he forgot his creator because he spent all his giftings and all his times and energy pursuing earthly opportunities. He wanted to be a king that was recognized by the neighboring countries. Actually, Israel wasn't that powerful of a kingdom until David, his dad, came and then passed it on to him, and he totally pushed it to the forefront. Every other nation, the neighboring leaders would come and they would want to speak to him to see how wise he was. Look at the city of Jerusalem, how awesome it was built. So he spent a lot of times, energy, using his giftings, his wisdom, to build his kingdom, seeking after every opportunity to advance him, to push himself to the forefront before every other king. And that's why he didn't remember his creator. The verse 4 and 5 that we just read that said, when the doors to the streets are closed and the sound of grinding fades, when people rise up at the sound of birds, but all their songs grown faint. He's talking about that back then, a typical day in the streets of Jerusalem, when people will open up their doors to face the street. It's very, kind of like the night markets, very busy, full of people, and there's always the sound of the mills grinding, the millstones grinding the food, the different grains. It was just filled with food. Everyone was prosperous. It was a very good time during the history of Israel. That's the sound that's kind of like the background of a typical prosperous day at that time. That everyone was seeking after the best opportunities that they can get to advance themselves in life. So the whole nation was pushing forward. But they were spending so much time and energy and their giftings all the while they were not remembering their creator that puts them there in the first place. And I thought that this picture, even though we don't really know how the streets of Jerusalem look like nowadays, but that feeling of pushing ourselves to the limit in order to pursue all available opportunities in life. Ever since we're very young, especially people in North America, we push ourselves very hard since we're very young. Even in grade schools and kindergarten, they try to prep themselves. Our church's preschool is so advanced academically, when they get to first grade in the public school, they don't have anything else to learn. I'm not saying that's necessarily very good, okay? but we push ourselves very, very hard. Like during the college years, it's probably the hardest academic years for anybody. We push ourselves to the limit. So I wanted to see, because I've been out of college for, well, actually I'm back in seminary, but it's different. But I've been out of the typical college for a long time. So I wanted to see what are some of the tough universities like nowadays. So I look on the internet, I found this website called Unigo that does all kind of surveys of different colleges, and they rank them according to different categories. And one category I found is called the top 10 colleges that will kick your behind. They didn't use the word behind, but I just changed it to behind. Top 10 colleges that will kick your behind, right? So this is how they rank them. If we take a look at the one on the left, first, number 10 is Columbia University. And they have some notable quotes from their students or the graduates, okay? This is what one student said, Columbia University. From what I gauge, academics are generally a student's first priority here. Our largest library is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and there are always people writing, sleeping, eating, or often literally living in there. Freshman English major. Any of you guys in college, I know people who live in the library? Yeah, I used to do that. Yeah, I sneak the snacks, and you're not supposed to take food in, right? And I find this nice cubicle, and I got all my books laid out there, and I start studying. After 15 minutes, I pass out and I fall asleep. But see, you can't sleep a long time on the cubicle. I slept about 30 minutes, then my arm gets all like in pain, totally numb. I don't know where my arms are. Then I wake up. That forces me to wake up. After I wake up, I got my sleep. So I continue to study for the rest of the day. So that's what happened. Well, let's go to number 9. Next to number 9, next door is Caltech, California Institute of Technology. Alumni says, not for the faint of heart, work is 100 hours per week. Another person said, classes are hard, but they teach you a lot, so be prepared to work your behind off, but get a world-class education. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Next slide is, we move to number 6, next slide. On the left, Harvard University. Harvard University, all right, number 6. Junior Italian study says, Harvard can have the tendency to make everyone feel insufficient. Next to students who are saving baby seals and starting AIDS research program in Africa, it can be difficult to feel like you belong. I heard this one before. Okay, another person says, Harvard science students are cutthroat competitive. Unless you're a genius or already learned the material before coming, don't expect to get above average and hence higher than a B. Okay, so this is very, very difficult. Okay, don't be discouraged. But anyways, let's go to number 4, next to Harvard's University of Chicago. Okay, sophomore says, let's put it this way. The all-night level of library is one of the most social places on campus. Now, that's not good. You're not supposed to socialize. You're supposed to study. But anyways, next person, sophomore Dave, said, it is the most academically rigorous, intense, and merciless school in the country. I like the word merciless that he used. All right, let's go to the last slide on the left. MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Sophomore engineering major says, if you're at MIT, you're probably the smartest person at your high school, and you're probably very likely to spend the next 4 years feeling like a complete idiot. Okay. So it's a true quote. Okay, and then the last one on the right-hand side, and nobody really knows this university. It's a liberal arts college called Reed College in Oregon. Reed College in Oregon. Student says, Reed will drive you crazy. If it doesn't, you didn't do it right. Next student, if you graduate with a 2.0, then you're an A student anywhere else. Last student, academic at Reed are brutally hard and will probably make you cry at least 4 times each semester. Oh, that's sad. That's very sad. But people, we push ourselves. Crazy. We push ourselves today. Maybe not like this, but all of you have experienced the amount of time and effort you got to put forth to advance yourself, to have an opportunity in the society. And to do that, we push ourselves so hard that we got nothing left for God. We don't remember him. We don't even got the time to remember him. In fact, Solomon continues by saying that, and with the natural boldness and the drive that we have in the youth days, we just spend it on the wrong thing. God is the last person he remembered. Though he was very bold, though he had a strong drive when he was young, for some reason he just did not remember his Creator. That's what he meant when he said, when people are afraid of heights, of dangers in the streets, when almond trees blossom, which meant when people's hair turn white, grasshopper drag itself along, and desire is no longer stirred. I remember when I was younger. I'm not that old, but I remember when I was younger. There was a drive and a desire about life. Like I was not afraid of death. It really felt like that. Because see, I'm a mountain biker, and I still do that. And I'm a motorcyclist. I still do that, right? But not like before. I remember when I was young, when I would go mountain bike, what I really enjoyed was the downhill part. Now, I enjoy the uphill part, which is really weird, right? Uphill is hard. Because I remember this time I got together with my friends in the Santa Monica Mountains, and there were a couple of pro racers there that wanted to take us on this trail. So I was like, yeah, big deal. I can follow them, right? So I followed them down this trail. It's just really steep, and I never been on a trail before, so you don't know the situation, you don't know the environment, right? So I remember after they went really fast on this one turn, and I turned around and I didn't see them anymore. They disappeared from the trail. I was wondering where they go, right? But then half a second later, I realized what was going on, that there was a cliff, a drop-off. It's not a real cliff that goes 100 feet, but it was probably like 20 feet. Okay? That goes, and then there's a river that follows on the bottom. No more trail, not a river, a creek, shallow water. So I could have slammed on my brake and stopped, but I didn't. I'm serious. No fear in my heart at all. I just went off the cliff and I landed on the creek and I saw them in front of me. That's where they were, and we just continue riding down the mountain. Nowadays, if I see a cliff or if I see a hill that's like steeper than this angle, I get off my bike and I carry my bike down the hill. Yeah, that's what I do. Like I would ride up the hill and I beat all these young guys up the hill, right? I'm at the top resting and checking out the scenery. They come up, oh, dude, you're awesome. I'm just old and experienced. And then they continue to ride down the hill and I'm picking up my bike. They're, why are you doing that? Because I don't want to mess up my bike. Yeah, because I'll crash and mess up my bike. But that, that boldness is not there, honestly. When you become older, it's not like you can't do things, but it's not the same as when you were young, and the drive and the desires are there. But for some reason, the ways of the world, the things of the world, like in LA Zoo, it pulls our drive and our desire away from concentrating it and giving them to someone that really deserves it, really deserves it. And that's the reason Solomon said, don't forget to remember your Creator, that you got to remember it. And you got to remember it for a reason. When we talked about the reason, the reasons why we forget it, but why do we need to remember our Creator? What do we do? Do we just remember that while we are studying hard, I remember that there's a God in heaven? Right? While I'm seeking after pleasure, I remember Jesus Christ sitting at the right hand of God. What does it mean by to remember our Creator? Remembering means doing something. So if it's my wedding anniversary, I'm not just going to go up to Wendy and say, hey, Wendy, guess what? It's our wedding anniversary. And then that's it. I remembered. Right? You got to do something. If you remember things in order to do something about it. You don't just remember it, recall it in your mind. You do something. Remember your Creator so that you can do something about it. That's what he's talking about. And when we remember our Creator, the first things that we got to do, learning from King Solomon, is we got to remember to honor our Creator, honor our God. And by reading all the things that King Solomon regrets, all the best things that we have in life, we want to honor our Creator while we still got these good stuff, while we still got the energy, the desire, the boldness, the giftings, while we still got it, while we still enjoy everything in life, we want to offer our best to Him, to honor Him. When we give stuff to God, we always give our best. He will not accept anything second best because He doesn't need them. What He wants is our heart. Offer our best to Him. As Proverbs 3:9 says, honor the Lord with your wealth, with the first fruits of all your crop. When you offer yourself, you always offer the best, not second best, while you are still young. While you're still very, very able, very healthy, give your best to God. That's what it means by remembering your Creator. You know, I was very touched when one of my sisters called me the other day, and she said, Pastor Stephen, can you pray for me? I'm well, sure, of course. What about? So I have this intense headache. I've been not feeling well since yesterday. But, you know, I had to go to school because if I miss school this morning, I'm going to miss out on something very important for my class, and it's going to be really hard for me. So I dragged myself to school, and I was so exhausted that the security staff has to escort me to the health office after some time. It was that bad. I finally got home, and I'm still exhausted. I have this huge headache, but I want to spend quiet time with God. I've done all these things, gone through all this trouble for my academics. I feel like I need to do at least that for God. Can you pray for me so I can spend my quiet time with God? I say, yes. I pray for the God to honor you for offering your best to Him. I think that's a very vivid example of how we offer our best to God. We do all these things for the things of the world. We got to at least give that same amount of effort for God. That's called honoring God, giving our best. But then I think the most important thing for remembering our Creator is because our Creator has a purpose for us in this life. The reason why Solomon used the word Creator here and not God or Lord, he didn't say, remember your Lord or remember your God. He said, remember your Creator. It's because he wanted us to realize that we are created beings by God. And God has not finished His work with us yet. He's given us however many years here on earth to continue with His work on each and every one of us. He puts us in the family we are in, the schools we're in, the churches we're in, the marriages we're in, for the purpose of shaping us. Each situation that we are in are just tools to shape us, for Him to continue to work on us. We are to learn valuable life lessons in each of the stages in our life if we will remember to allow Him to shape us. That's by following His teaching to the best of our ability. When we're a student, we try to be godly students. Workers, we try to be godly workers. Brothers and sisters, co-workers in the church, the best, most godly co-worker there is. And through that, we allow God to shape us, to finish His creation work on us. That's what it means by remember your Creator. Because His work here on earth for us is still to be done. It is the process called sanctification. But He's not going to force us. He's not going to force to sanctify us. But it is His will. 1 Thessalonians 4:3 says, it is God's will that you should be sanctified. And 1 Thessalonians 5:23-24 says, "May God himself, the God of peace, sanctify you through and through. May your whole spirit, soul, and body be kept blameless at the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ. Faithful is he who calls you, and he also will bring it to pass." It is his will to work on our life, for the Creator to finish his creative work on each and every one of us. But we need to remember to let him do that, so that by the time we see Jesus' face, we would be sanctified. Our lives would be like Jesus Christ. And we wouldn't feel like King Solomon, that after an entire lifetime of pleasure, of advancement, of boldness and desire, that he realized none of the lesson that God wanted him to learn stayed with him. He was not finished. And that's an unfortunate thing. Very unfortunate. So from the words of a wise teacher, King Solomon, we learn a lifetime of regrets. But since we still have the opportunity, while we still have our best, remember our Creator. Offer our best to him. Let him work in our lives. And in each stage of our lives, we will be able to learn and gain the characters that he wants us to be. Until we see Jesus, then we will be like him. Let's pray.